there was a degree of rage on your part, on Mr. Rivera's part, such that this victim was stabbed 28 times before he died on the floor of that restaurant kitchen.
Yes.
So, it wasn't so much impulsive and reckless as it was fueled by rage.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. How did you get elected to drive the body to Bridgeport?
And we are about to watch the insane parole hearing for a man who stabbed his boss. A KFC manager stabbed him nearly 30 times and then wrapped his body in plastic, placed him in the trunk of his own car, and then drove him out into the middle of nowhere. This is just one of those cases. I mean, it made the New York Times. This is one of those stories that they probably thought this was a mob hit, but to be the employee of a KFC, it just makes no sense. But what also makes no sense, in my opinion, is how he, all these years later, almost 25 years later, still seems to just claim that it was what you did. It was part of the unspoken rule of what you would do for your buddy. I mean, it's the most bizarre hearing, one of the more bizarre hearings. What's interesting about this case too is that we see the parole board really go off on his attorney, on the way that his attorney approached this case. And frankly, I love it because the approach that his attorney took as well, it's just out. It's out there. Now, there were opening remarks that he gives. He reads basically half a Bible in his opening remarks. They went almost 30 minutes long. I'm not going to put you through it. I listened to it. It was slow and tedious. In a nutshell, he talks about the code of gang life. He talks about his mother being physically abusive to him. He talks about how at the age of 14, he had to get his first job at the farm. And then you'll hear the end of his statement. But I fast forwarded it for you. It's actually sped up at 100x, if you can imagine that. So anyways, let's jump in, watch this hearing. I don't yet know the outcome. I haven't seen the outcome. I've only seen the beginning and before the voting. So I'm curious to see what they vote. And then I'll unpack it with what details we have at the end.
My name is Raul Cardona, inmate number 273008.
Thank you. This is a public hearing in accordance to Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1-200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Cardona, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time. Again, this is a public hearing. Mr. Cardona, do you have any questions, and are you willing to proceed with the hearing?
Yeah, we can proceed.
Thank you. Previously stated, this is a Public Act 23-169 hearing. It's being conducted today in consideration of parole application for Raul Cardona, date 273008. Sir Cardona, serving a sentence 32 years, 6 months flat, no probation followed for murder. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan in place to been reviewed and shown that he has completed voices. Mr. Cardona also reported to having completed Tier 2, and he currently maintains job assignment. Utilizing the statewide collaborative risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RC falls low range risk for recidivism. Mr. Cardona, this is now your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole, and you may begin.
Okay. My name is Raul Cardona. I am 44 years old. I have been incarcerated now for over 25 years. I would like to thank this board for this second opportunity to be here today, to express myself and show how much have I grown and I have changed over the past 25 years. I hope you will see evidence of this change today. In the summer of 2022, I came before this board for my commutation. I was blessed and truly grateful when I got my sentence reduced from 42 and a half years to 32 and a half years. Or I may never be forgiven. Nothing I do will make up for the pain and destruction I have caused Mr. Ferron's family. However, if given the opportunity to return to the community, I would like to make my goal to be a productive member of society and contribute to build and mentoring others. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cardona. We appreciate all of the time and effort you put into that opening statement, and you did a great job delivering it. So we're going to take turns asking you some questions before we turn the hearing over to the attorneys. We're going to begin with my colleague, Ms. Palmieri.
So good afternoon, Mr. Cardona. Great job on that opening statement. You really touched on a lot of the areas that we would be wanting to hear about, right? You know, I'm just going to harken back to the beginning of your statement where you spoke about your original sentence was 42 and a half years, and you were fortunate to get a sentencing commutation with 10 years off your sentence. I was on that hearing, and I'm sure you recall that I did not vote in favor of the commutation at that time. So as I reviewed your case today, I want you to know that today's hearing is different than the commutation hearing. Today's hearing is to determine your suitability for parole. So it is with somewhat of a different lens today. We're looking at your case. Right? I wanted you to know that I was coming into the hearing today with a different look at your case. So as we do go through your case, we do need to talk about the offense. You know, it's a very violent offense, and it was the harm to the victim was he's not only was he murdered, but the harm in that murder being committed is really just incredibly violent. I'd like you to tell me what your role in that offense was.
My role at that part was I was a follower. And so when I saw my Cody Armando Rivera attacking Mr. Joseph Ferron, my reaction was just help him. So when Armando stabbed him, I grabbed the other knife and stabbed him too. I was a follower, like doing whatever he wanted to do. And I was scared at the moment.
And then you drove the victim's car and left it in Bridgeport.
In Bridgeport.
I did read all the police reports. There's a lot of different scenarios that go along with this police report, that go along with this offense. That your version is probably one of the most clear of that. I'm not going to get into a lot of details about it because I think it just is not necessary. I think it's important for us to recognize what your specific role was in it. So I appreciate you coming forward with that. We did read about your co-defendants. So today we are also here to talk about some of the changes that have happened with you since the age of 19 to the 44 that you are now. And you went through a lot of the details, so I don't have a tremendous amount, too many questions for you. But I do want to talk a little bit about offender change, right? We need to explore what's different about you today than it was when you're 19, aside from the fact that you're an older person. But what has changed in terms of your thinking and how you process information? So you've taken a lot of programs. And I'm going to, let me back up for a quick second. The first thing you probably did was educate yourself. I read that you were a Spanish-speaking individual when you came into the facility, and now clearly you appear to have mastered the English language.
Yep.
And how did you do that?
Took it on myself to try to better myself and gain help from persons in the block, school, teachers. So I needed it to understand the words they were speaking to me. To understand inmates and DOC staff, I had to learn how to speak English and understand it. So I took it on myself and signed up to go to school.
And you felt that was important. Tell me again, why was that important to do to you?
It was important because to understand somebody that's talking to you and you don't know what he's saying, it's hard to follow directions. So when you understand what they're telling you, it's good to understand it so that you follow instructions. Whatever the staff tell you to do, you do it. But when the inmate is mad at you, he's saying something that you don't understand, you can understand him, why was his anger, or what he's saying. So living in here, you have to be prepared for everything.
So with that, you received your GED in 2007. I have a note that the highest grade you had completed in the community was 7th grade. Is that pretty accurate?
Yep.
And then since getting your GED, you have done a number of programs, and you went through some of them. You did a nice job talking about the Voices program. And you did the Tier 2 program a long time ago in 2001. And the Alternative to Violence program, you did partially until you were transferred?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you've been in the honors program. Are you still in the honor program?
Yes.
Okay. Are you doing your mentoring virtually now? I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And how long have you been in the honor program?
I've been in the honor program since 2020.
2020. Now, is that a program you applied to?
No, that was a program they started in 2020 after COVID.
Right.
To
and how did
help
you get involved?
Because they had all the inmates they have not been in problems with no ticket free, no fight, and they had a job permanently.
Okay. So they approached you to see if you wanted to be involved in it. Okay. How'd you feel about that? How did you feel about being asked to be a part of that program?
I feel good when they ask if I want to be part of that, and if I want to be part of the change that we're trying to do. I feel good, and I had a lot of responsibility at the time with helping inmates outside in the shops, teaching how they work the machines. So it was good to finally, find a block they're trying to help us with programs.
Being part of the honor program, what does that do for you?
For me,
Yeah,
it was
what
a
do you
change.
get out of it?
It made me change to see how people, when you ask for help, they give it to you. And learn how to use somebody to help you on positive ways, ask for help for the staff, and integrate with inmates and make them see different perspective of yourself.
Do you think the honor program is working?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
So far, we didn't have no incidents in our unit. We work in the unit, we keep the unit clean, we work with staff to help other inmates. We work with the counselors, the unit manager. We all have a group that we all sit down and talk. Like twice a week, we sit down and talk and see how you're feeling for the day. Like we gotta check in and see how you're feeling for the day. If you're feeling down, so we got another group of people that help you trying to get back to you, you know.
Okay.
They ask you questions,
So-
they 1 to 10.
So it sounds like you mentor, but also get some mentoring yourself.
Yes,
Through
yes.
through those groups. Okay. How long were you in Virginia?
We was like a year, 2 years, we was down there.
Okay. Did you do any programs while you were in Virginia?
Nah, I was working in laundry.
Working laundry, okay. I know that, you know, it's important for us also to look at your disciplinary history. And it's unusual to see somebody your age go into the facility and not have any problems for that first 10 years. We usually see mostly a lot of the DRs with the younger inmates. You must see it early in their sentence while they're pretrial waiting sentence. You didn't seem to have any troubles like that. Why was that?
When I came to jail,
Mhm.
I was by myself. You know, I had my family supporting me and keeping myself positive and keep doing the doctor stuff and inside the facility, like I used to do on the street. Stay out of the people's faces, don't interact, don't try to get. But at the same time, I started getting help from inmates and counselors and Korean correctional facility that they help me to stay positive and give me programs, school, and keep myself busy.
You have one disciplinary report in 2010. I would say it's not very significant. So first disciplinary report 10 years into your sentence, and then nothing since. So nothing for the last 14 years.
Nope.
You mentioned briefly that you've been working in the marker shop for 17 and a half years.
Yes.
How does one manage to stay in the same job for that long?
I enjoy my job. I work with the supervisors, you know, we made plastic bag license plates for the whole state. I help the supervisor sometime fixing a warehouse, get everything, all the inventory. And I enjoy my job. Every time I get up 7 in the morning, ready to go to work to 1 o'clock. It's like 5 days a week.
And you've had a lot of responsibility within that job, a couple of
Yeah.
different, I don't know, would you call them promotions or are they job shifts,
No.
job changes?
For me, it was I started when I started it, I started doing bags. Then I took a big position that I started fixing the warehouse, inventory, make sure all the plastic that's going out or getting ordered, getting ready to go out. So it was a promotion from plastic bag to inventory person, being the clerk, make sure all the stuff be ordered, come in, and everything they go out, make sure everything is in order.
So with each job shift, there was some more responsibility to it.
Yes.
Like, okay. All right. And do you have individuals that work underneath you
Yes.
that you're in charge of? Okay.
Yes.
How many people do you think are accountable?
14.
Okay. That's quite a responsibility.
Yeah.
You think you're a good leader?
I think I learned how to be a good leader with them. And the thing is, I listen to them. Sometimes it's good to listen to make sure they are comfortable with the job they're doing. If not, I just talk to the supervisor and we look for a better spot for them. So if they're not comfortable with the job they're doing, we just remove them, we'll put them in other areas.
Do you ever have any troubles that you have to speak to somebody about their behavior or
Nah,
have to redirect someone?
nope. Because we all in that shop, it's like we all like a family. We're all in the same block, we live with each other. So we just do our job. And when I tell them they do something, they do it without asking the question or why, because they know we just there to do a good job and that's it.
Sounds like everybody takes some pride in what they do.
Yeah.
So no grumbling when people have to work too much? No?
Nah,
Okay. Ever have to de-escalate any disagreements between
We have-
individuals?
yeah, we had one argument between two inmates because they want to work in the computer area. So they only got 4 computers.
So they have to,
So they all started arguing, no, it's my turn to do this, do that. So me and the supervisor had to get involved to talk to them and let them know that every job and position in there, you got to learn from the bottom up. You cannot go like you just came in and you just want to go to the computer. You can't do that. That's how we just count down everything in the shops.
have you had an opportunity to read some of the evaluations from your supervisor in the marker shop?
For myself,
Yes.
yes, I read them.
And you hear some of the way they describe you as respectful and responsible, proficient, take initiative, work well with others. Those are all characteristics I would hope that they will be transferable for you into the community when you go out to seek employment.
Yeah.
Are there any programs that you wish you were able to take or that you would still like to take at the facility?
They had a program that I was waiting for, but they never had the chance to find a facilitator for it. It was Trestle and Manhood Tree.
Okay. And you were on the wait list for them
Yes.
and not able to take them? If you're back in the community and you need to take programs, what do you think will be helpful?
Well, for me, the first thing will be mental health.
Why do you think you need that?
It's one thing is as inmates, after being incarcerated for so many years, we had the tendency of look out everywhere we walk. And it's like a trauma in our head. I don't know if it's what it's like when we walk and we hear keys, we just get nervous. We look at the side like because that's the signs of somebody's fighting or the SEALs running somewhere and you got to get out of the way. So that trauma is in our minds right now. And to get back to society, we need help to get that fixed before integrated back to society.
Thank you. You have on your release plan going to a halfway house.
Yes,
Do you have support in the community?
yes.
What do you have in the community that you can count on?
I got my uncle Hilbert Albert Hilbert.
Is he the uncle in New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay.
And my sister Jeanette Nieves.
Where's your sister?
She's in Puerto Rico.
Okay. Anybody local that you can count on?
Local, I will have a friend, Benito Lugo, that work at the Community Partners in Action.
Okay.
And he's gonna help me with all the help necessary I need for the street. He will help me after I come out of the halfway house to get all the paperwork that I need. Trying to get me to school for the CDL. That's my other goal. And then I will have my social worker. She be helping me a lot, and I will continue to contact her and talk about with her and everything. And my lawyer, Michael, he will be assisting me too.
You know, being out in the, releasing to the community, you know, whether it's today or at your end of sentence time, you know, you've been incarcerated for a very long time, and you just described some of the traumas that, you know, are ingrained in you from being in prison for so long. And I would think it could be overwhelming. And I also think it could be difficult to find employment and housing at some point. Have you thought about how you'll manage some of those frustrations or disappointments?
I managed to get some people in my corner right now that will help me to get employment immediately if I get released. I got a friend that work in Amazon in Hartford, and then I got a friend in here that his sister help her fix housing and stuff like that, and he said she would give me a job with her.
Okay. Question. So, went right out. I'm sorry. I had a thought of a question and went right out of my head. Okay. So you also have on your release plan that you'd like to get your CDL.
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned working with a program to do that. You've already identified a program for that. Is that for CPA?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And you go to the halfway house. Have you thought about what might be a little difficult for you when you first get out?
I have think about like the positive obstacles and stuff that I would have, but like I say, I would need the help. Like I would ask for help, especially my parole officer.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in touch with him to help me past those obstacles.
Because you have no criminal history. So you've never been on community supervision before. Have you talked to anybody what it's like to be on parole, what the advantages are, what people struggle with?
Yeah, I have talked to a friend of mine that he went home like 10 years ago, and he's doing good in the community right now. He said that it's a struggle if you're by yourself. But if you have people in your corner to help you, you can pass all the obstacles in there.
You know, parole serves a couple of purposes in the community. It provides safety to the community, monitoring in the community. They have arrest powers if you start getting into trouble again.
Yep.
But they also have a bank of resources and point you in the direction for support, housing. You know, so, and that's twofold. They have a lot of they have a lot of programs they work with, but you have to be able to think about what your needs are also. Or you have to be able to be honest with them. Tell them when you're struggling. Tell them if you have concerns. You know, so it's really a two-way street.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, nobody is looking to violate somebody. So if you're successful, everybody else is successful. So that is ultimately the goal.
All right.
Because I look, you know, you were a teenager when you were arrested, and now you're a middle-aged person. Big difference. So when you go into prison at the age of 19 and you have a 42-year sentence, How do you stay hopeful over that time?
I have my family to thank for, you know, and during my incarceration, I started meeting all my family for part of my father that I never met before. Like my grandmother, sisters, brothers, niece, nephews. So all of them have kept me in a positive way to keep going and fighting to go to see them again on the street.
So your family has been encouraging over the years. You must not see them though, if they're not in Connecticut.
I talk to them on the phone.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Cardona, I do not have any other questions for you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Mr. Cardona, you know, you've really done a remarkable job this period of incarceration. Between the programs, the vocational training, your education, and your behavior in the facility, you're to be commended. So with that said, I do need to go into the crime. I need to understand better. How long had you been employed at Kentucky Fried Chicken?
I was there for like 3 months.
And did you know your co-defendants before you started the job?
One of them,
Which one?
Jose Rivera. No, I think Jose Pedraza. That's
Okay,
his name, Pedraza.
he was, okay, so your younger co-defendant. So the situation as it evolved there at the business, Rivera was having conflict with the victim, the manager of the KFC, and it was building.
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Rivera was having some conflict with the supervisor, the victim in this case, and it was kind of building up.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
And there was some communication back and forth among the three of you, you know, that he intended to, you know, have it out with the victim. With that,
Now, when he came into the back, I didn't understand what was going on because they was arguing, and I didn't understand English at the time. So when he came to the back and explained to me what was happening, I asked him, like, yo, you did it? He said, no. He said, I was in the back with you all day. So when the managers came to the back arguing with him, again, they started arguing, and Mandoo grabbed him and stabbed him through the back. So when he did that, my reaction was like when I used to be in Puerto Rico, help your friend follow the code. You are trash. You know, so I grabbed the
I
other
guess
knife.
I struggle with that. In 3 months, you had such allegiance to this individual that you had no moral compass in the moment, but to join in taking the life of another person.
Yeah, I was following a code because I was raised with a group of people, like to be with them and to follow them, you have to follow whatever they do.
But there was some rumbling, some grumbling going on ahead of time that Rivera was pissed off.
Yeah, was pissed off.
Uh-huh.
But
So
when they started,
you saw some indicators that something was going to go down. And you
I
didn't
just
remove yourself from the situation. And in fact, you ended up playing a massive role in this.
I was a follower.
So your attorney describes it as impulsive and reckless immaturity. You know, there was a degree of rage on your part, on Mr. Rivera's part, such that this victim was stabbed 28 times. before he died on the floor of that restaurant kitchen.
Yes.
So, it wasn't so much impulsive and reckless as it was fueled by rage.
Yes.
How did you get elected to drive the body to Bridgeport?
He told me to drive the car to Bridgeport, where he was going to turn the car and burn the car.
But he didn't follow you because he took Jose home.
Yeah. I waited, and the place he told me to wait for him, and I left the car right there and left.
So not much brotherhood there. Pretty misguided allegiance. So then, as you guys were cleaning up this impossible to clean crime scene, you decided to make it look like a robbery.
That was his idea.
So he broke into the safe and then split the money.
Yep.
Okay. So your attorney saying the undisputed fact that the primary purpose of this homicide was for financial gain isn't true,
No.
right? Okay. So the victim input at the time of sentencing, or in the pre-sentence investigation, talked about your crime as one of torture. And apparently, as the victim was being killed, he repeatedly asked, "What did I do to you?"
I know he spoke some, but I didn't understand what he was saying.
Because you were overheard saying, "I did it for Victor." Who's Victor?
No.
It sounded like the statement was, "I did it for Victor, your brother," but you don't have a brother named Victor.
Nope.
So were the victim to be here today or one of his family members, and they again posed the question to you, why? Why?
I was a follower. I was like, I never thought, this would have happened. I used to just follow my instincts and help them.
And your instinct was to pick up a knife and repeatedly stab another human being.
Yes.
I'm a little bit perplexed in the document from your attorney by the statement that the nature and circumstances surrounding the offense do not rise to the level of required continued incarceration. You got a 42-year sentence that was reduced to 32 years, and this would be the equivalent of 6.5 years of discretionary parole, you being back out in the community, which means your sentence was really 26 years incarceration. So I'm not on board with it. The sentence is what the sentence is, and it, I think entirely fits the heinous nature of this crime. You showed no mercy to another human being and no regard for his humanity in your disposal of his body. You indicated in your documents that you're going to live each day showing remorse and atoning for your acts. Can you give me 3 different ways that you're going to do that?
I contribute back to the community.
I need you to be specific.
I will help with the youth on the community so they do not commit the same acts or something similar to what I did, and they can choose the better path than what they're taking.
Any other ways you plan to atone or give back?
I will give back, like, I'll be giving back since starting out. I'll be giving to St. Jude, helping donations. We donated clothes to the homeless in Hartford and Waterbury. We have donated to King Queen Sutton in Hartford. It's a donation that we did for school supplies for kids.
Who is this we that you're referring to?
The whole unit, the honor unit.
But you won't be part of that when you're back in the community. So are
Still
there
won't be.
other,
I'm still gonna be part of that because I still got in contact with the person they doing the donations. And I told him that if I'm released, I would like to help him in his organization.
there are lots and lots of charities out in the community. So, you know, volunteering your efforts in existing organizations would be positive. You could certainly, you know, seek out adult ed and teach people English as a second language. You know it better than anybody.
Yeah.
So your statement earlier in the hearing about being a productive member of society, what does that mean to you?
Doctor, mean to be part of the community as a productive member will be to help in the community to make sure everybody need what it needs. If I need to help my neighbor with grass, I help my neighbor with my grass. The community, like the kids in the community, if I see somebody that's not doing right, just trying to pull it to the side, talk to them, trying to engage in a good conversation with anybody that I can get to, and help, especially in schools, try to go to school and talk to kids about
I'm not sure how realistic that is as a convicted felon, that you're going to be able to speak in our public schools, but there are other ways that you can give back.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to think of being a productive member of society as someone who earns a paycheck, pays their taxes, you know, registers to vote when you're eligible to, you know, be a volunteer, give of your time and your efforts, be a supportive neighbor, like you're talking about, you know, coming up on snow shoveling season, as they tell us, even this week, you know. So you could be a bridge to others in your community who don't speak English. All right, thank you for talking with me, Mr. Cardona. Ms. Chance?
Just wanted to ask Mr. Cardona maybe just one or two questions. You said you normally work the day shift. Why were you working the night shift on that particular night?
The chef in that night, he called out sick, so they called me to work for him.
Who called you?
The first shift manager.
And you were only there for like 2 or 3 months, you said?
Yes.
Did you know that your co-defendant, Mr. Rivera, would be working that evening?
Nope.
Did he know the shift manager?
The shift manager,
Yeah,
did
did
not.
Mr. Rivera know him?
I did not know how to answer that, if he knew it, but he worked the second shift turn, so I don't know if he worked before with him or not.
And you got the job because of your co-defendant, Mr. Pedraza?
I got the job because a friend of the family that worked there, Rosa, got me the job.
Who did she talk with?
She talked to the manager.
Which one?
The first ship, I forgot her name. It was the first ship manager.
So, why was it that you got the majority of the sentence? Because you got 42.5 years and Mr. Rivera got 40 years. And then Mr. Pedraza, I think, got 18.5 or something like that. Why?
At the time of the moment, I was trying to go to trial, fighting it. Because at the moment I was in denial. I didn't want to take responsibility of my actions. And I was playing not guilty.
But didn't you end up pleading the Alpha Doctrine?
Yes.
And what is it that you disagree with why you were doing that?
I was ashamed of what my family would have thought. They would have tried,
Wasn't that because they thought you were the one that planned the whole robbery and homicide? Wasn't that the reason?
Nah. When I went to trial, my lawyer told me capped out to the affidavit, because if not, if I would take it to trial, they would have given me the death penalty.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't. Okay. I'm all set. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. As previously noted, there is no victim input in this case. I'd like to turn the hearing to the attorneys. And Attorney Kelly, are you present in order to participate in the same?
Still sits on hold.
Yes, thanks to that. Madam Chair, would you like to proceed?
Yes.
Attorney.
Yeah.
Thank you. Attorney, oh, sorry.
Okay.
You can make any statements or final remarks that you have at this time.
Certainly, thank you. At first, I just want to clarify a few things that was brought up during the hearing. I think the first thing I'd like to mention is that I think Mr. Cardona, when answering that last question of why he pled guilty, was not answering the question of why he pled guilty under the Alfred Doctrine. I think that maybe was a miscommunication, and although Mr. Cardona has made extreme advancements in the English language, I still, working with him and knowing Mr. Cardona, recognize some things are apparently lost in confusion. The second thing I would like to clarify is that there are two, I believe, primary purposes for the commission of this crime. And though Mr. Cardona's primary, or excuse me, though Mr. Rivera's primary purpose certainly was anger, rage, in the latter, I don't necessarily believe that was Mr. Cardona's purpose or Mr. Pedraza's purpose. I think Mr. Pedraza certainly was motivated by the financial gain, and I do just want to bring up. I recognize it's very difficult to understand what brought Mr. Cardona to this decision, right? I mean, why is he making this seemingly terrible decision? And I don't think anyone's able to really understand that without looking at his history and looking at the traumatic upbringing this man got in a single family home without a father, with an alcoholic mother who verbally abused him, who would physically abuse him, who would tell him that if he did not protect people, that she was going to beat him, and whether he protected that person or not, he was still beaten. So he has been brought up with this mentality, and you know, juxtapose that with what he learned on the streets of Puerto Rico. I mean, this man was quite literally had the code beaten into him by a 2x4 and split open. You can still see a scar on Mr. Cardona's face as evidence of that. And so I don't think anyone can really understand why they would be so reactionary and why they would be so fearful when somebody tells that individual, grab a knife and stab this guy. I don't think you can really put that into context without understanding this is how he grew up. Follow this code, protect your brothers, or you're going to get it next. And when he sees someone getting stabbed and he doesn't participate, his mentality is, that's me next. And so I think that there's also a distinction between in the moment, right? When he has no time to think, no time to really take a step back, and that time period where he's just kind of sitting there waiting for Mr. Rivera to show up. And that is the point where he did have some time to reflect, and he did have time to think about, oh my God, what have I just done? And I think that is maybe a difference that's not necessarily noted in any of the paperwork or answers that were provided. But I think that, again, he grew up with no real male role model. He came to the continent of the United States looking for his father, only to find, searching really for 3 years, only to find out that he died, and he was never able to find this man, never able to see him. And that was a problem for Mr. Cardona. And I think not only should this commission, or this board, excuse me, be looking at the crime. It's a heinous crime. There's no two ways about it. I think a lot of the information that we have about this crime comes from the other two co-defendants, placing blame on Mr. Cardona over themselves. And again, kind of with regard to that sentence, he was offered the same as Mr. Rivera. He had admitted only because of his shame, because of his denial in the cover-up and driving. That's what he told the police. I helped bring the body to the car. I drove the car to Bridgeport. That was his involvement. He was ready to plead guilty to that. He was not ready to admit the stabbing. I don't think he was even ready to admit that at the time of commutation. The first time that I read anything, I mean, he told me what had happened, but the first time I actually read anything about him admitting to what he had done was in the discharge summary provided by the parole board. And I think that you want to talk about the difference between Mr. Cardona at 19 years old and the difference now. I think that is a drastic difference. I mean, even from 2 years ago when he was granted commutation, that he has been able to now come to grips with what actually occurred. Think about why this actually happened and determine what negative factors and influences he's not going to let affect him in his life. And he has since found religion. You've seen he's taken several Bible classes. That's, again, since his commutation 2 years ago. He has been able to have a relationship with God. He's been able to forgive himself. He's been able to admit to himself what he did, admit to his family what he did, and now admit to this parole board and the family of Mr. Ferrione what he did. And so I think that's another thing that we should really be commending. I mean, but for this incident, if you look at Mr. Cardona on paper, if you talk to this man, you see him, this is an aberration. This is something that no one would expect. He has an exemplary record while incarcerated. He's held a job for 17 and a half years. He's had one ticket, just one, in 25 and a half years. And that's from somebody who came into this facility not even speaking the language. I think that alone is something that separates Mr. Cardona apart from anyone and makes at least me, and I hope this parole board, take a second look at what actually happened at this incident. I think this is something that he essentially it was a mistake.
You are trash.
It was something that you would never expect. It was a complete isolated incident in Mr. Cardona's life that he's paid for. He has paid with his life for 25 and a half years. And I think another thing that we should consider is that he does have 6 years left, and he does have, and that 6 years, I believe, would be much more beneficial to Mr. Cardona, to the society, to everyone involved if he was released with some sort of supervision plan. If he was released after 25 and a half years, I think that's going to be very difficult for Mr. Cardona. And I think that it's something that we should hope he's able to do in steps. Mr. Cardona is not asking you to just put him back in somebody's house. He's asking for an opportunity to go to a halfway house because he recognizes this challenge. Again, we're talking about an immature, impulsive individual versus the mature, thoughtful human being who he discussed in his opening statement. Somebody came at him and he was able to de-escalate. I mean, this is exactly what we hope inmates can do. There is no other purpose served by his continued incarceration except for punishment for, again, a heinous crime. I think that what was brought up during this hearing was this sentence appropriate? Yeah, at the time it absolutely was. 100% appropriate. And I think that we can distinguish between what was appropriate at that time and then think about what has occurred in the last 25 and a half years that shows Mr. Cardona is ready for a second chance. One, that the legislator is giving him. He is the ideal candidate. And what I believe the legislator had in mind when they extended this, this statute. Someone who's been incarcerated, who has done everything right since his horrific crime, and is now being offered some opportunity for relief that he didn't necessarily have. And one last thing that I will leave you with is that even if Mr. Cardona was not granted a commutation in 2022, 60% of his 42 and a half original sentence would have made him parole eligible in August of 2023. And so he's not necessarily receiving any benefit from getting this hearing today. He's receiving the benefit of the legislator extending the age. So for those reasons and everything that Mr. Cardona has done, I'm asking you to take the crime itself as just one factor, which is what it's supposed to be looked at. It's weighted for sure, but I do not believe it outweighs everything he's done since. Thank you.
Can we check again to see whether the state's attorney is?
If you are able to hear us and turn on your camera, you can see something.
All right.
Yes, Madam Chair, if you'd like to proceed, and just let the record reflect that State's Attorney Kelly is not in the order to provide a statement.
Okay, I think you did just that. Thank you. All right, so we're going to begin our deliberations. Ms. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as I stated right from the beginning of the questioning with Mr. Cardona, today is a suitability for parole hearing. And we're looking at his current sentence and his current eligibility date. When we look to suitability for parole, we look for offender change. In this particular case, we're looking for a level of maturation, like indicators that the individual has matured over the years. As I said, in closing with Mr. Cardona, he was 19 years old when this occurred. He was a teenager. Now he's a middle-aged man, 44 years old.
I'm sure he doesn't appreciate you keep reminding him. I'm sure I guess it's probably the first time he's heard he's middle-aged.
Right. Might work to his advantage this time. And, you know, I think we're all in agreement. The crime, I wouldn't characterize it as a mistake. It's a horrific, violent attack on an innocent. And it was horrendous, heinous, as his attorney put it. So, you know, we do need to consider that is part of it, but we also need to look at what change Mr. Cardona has done over the last 25 years to make him suitable to be back in the community, to make him not a less of a potential risk to reoffend. And we look at programming, and we certainly look, first of all, is that Mr. Cardona took it upon himself to learn English, put himself back in school. He came from a very, very dysfunctional upbringing. Basically, from all the documents, raised by his sister, very abusive relationships with his mother, with other individuals in the family, comes, as he said, from Puerto Rico to find his father, and, you know, is again in these very dysfunctional relationships and situations, and finds himself incarcerated for a murder charge. He has accomplished quite a bit since he's been incarcerated. I don't think we need to go through every single program that he's taken. I think it's important to highlight the honor program, because we know not every individual is accepted into that program, and not every individual can do that program. It really is a program that puts himself out there for. It's support within the facility. I think the other thing that we have to talk about is the fact that he's had a job in the marker shop for 17 and a half years. It's rare that we see somebody hold a job for that long. He's got excellent evaluations, and he's got promotions over the years through that job. With that job, he has skills to bring with him into the community, which I think will make him very marketable for employment. I also think we have to look at his disciplinary history. I think it is remarkable that at age 19, he enters the facility and goes 10 years without any disciplinary reports. He has the one in 2010. The explanation seems to be plausible. Mr. Cardona takes responsibility for it. And here we are 15 years later and without another disciplinary report. I would like to have seen Mr. Cardona with a little bit more support in Connecticut for him upon release. But absent that, he seems to can maintain some connections with people in the community that are doing very well. By his report, I think he's identified programs to help him in the community. We all know CPA has a tremendous amount of resources. He's identified and explained why he thinks mental health treatment is important for somebody like himself. I don't think we've heard somebody quite detail it in that way. And I think we see the need for it, but often I think we don't hear it that articulated from the individuals at the hearing. He certainly has, he's also identified Wheeler Clinic for those mental health services. He's identified as a risk factor, kind of transitioning back to the community and how that could be possibly difficult. I think that is a realistic view of what he's walking into. And I'm going to harken back to the fact that he has identified supports in the community, helping. I don't think that the programming eliminates the mitigation of the crime, but I do think it brings, at least for myself, to a point where I can see Mr. Cardona back in the community. I also think that with Mr. Cardona, having been 19, now 44, that community supervision will be vital for his success. I think without it, he may do fine, but I think he'll struggle. I also think that community supervision is important for the community. I think it provides a level of monitoring and safety to make the community feel somewhat more secure. I think that Mr. Mr. Cardona has shown a level of maturity, determination, and seems to be very driven to turn his life around and do the right thing and make amends. I'm not sure that he can go into schools and speak, as Ms. Turner pointed out. I'm not even sure with his record that he could tutor in English as a second language, but he can certainly volunteer in the reentry centers and help in that way. And they would certainly be accepting of his assistance. And I think it would be good for Mr. Cardona in terms of giving back to his community. So for me, I am in favor of granting Mr. Cardona's request for discretionary parole today. I do find he is shown change. So that's it.
Okay. I am also in favor of granting Mr. Cardona 6.5 years is a lot of time to have parole in your business, but it's unwise after such a lengthy incarceration to put him out without any supports here in the state that are identified and responsible parties. So it's a grant for me, Ms. Chance.
I agree with what both of you said. I have nothing further to add.
Okay. So I have halfway house, mental health evaluation and treatment, no contact with co-defendants, and I'd like to see him do behavior management for anger management. Anything to add?
I have cluster the C family as the victim's family.
There is a registered granddaughter.
Right,
Mhm.
with that name.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, do we have the initials?
Yes. So in the matter of Raul Cardona, inmate number 273008, there is a motion to grant parole on or after today's date of December 2nd, 2024, with the following conditions for your supervision. You're to have halfway house placement. You're to participate in a mental health evaluation and treatment as deemed necessary. You're to have no contact with your co-defendants, Armando Rivera and Jose Pedraza. And you're to have no contact with the family member of the victim with the initials SC. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Cardona. Obviously, this won't happen today because you need halfway house placement, but you'll get all this in writing and the process will begin for you. We wish you much success.
Good luck, Mr. Cardona.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was the the Public Act 23-169 hearing for Cardona. 3008.
Hold on. All right, we're good. Get off.
Yep.
We're done. We're done.
Okay, we are going to unpack this. We are going to unpack it. And you know, that ending there, how the attorney stiffed him on the handshake, kind of seemed like a perfect ending. I did not, what was that attorney thinking? Like, really, he was like, I feel like the parole board got pissed off at him. I know I was. Who in their right mind uses the words, he made a mistake, when he stabs him how many times? Like 17 times or something? Takes his body, wraps it up in plastic, puts it in the trunk of his own car, of the victim's car, drives it out somewhere. Yeah, that's a mistake. Let's go say he's like, the board doesn't understand that he had a tough life because he came from a single family. It's like this is one of the most horrifying crimes. He was facing the death penalty, and it's like the way his attorney's talking about it is so nonchalantly, like, we should all realize that it's just not that big of a deal. And I'm like, what are we listening to? And then think about it, even the way he's answering questions. You know, Raul, who up for parole, the guy up for parole, he's just like, he seemed annoyed by the questions. He's just like, yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, I had to do it because because it's the code. And even the attorney saying, you don't understand, it's the code. And it's like, no. You know, and like, it's like as if they're such gangsters. It's a Kentucky Fried Chicken manager. This isn't like a street. This isn't a gang war. This is not like you're fighting for turf and it's the code. And you know what? You know what you're in for? This isn't the Mexican mafia. You're working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I feel like I'm losing my mind. God. When someone can snap and stab someone so many times, you really think that like that person's safe? You know, really, yeah, why didn't you have him move into your home? You know, we live in a world where butcher knives are everywhere. Now it is amazing. I'll admit it, to have no write-ups. I mean, that is, we've seen it in other states. I don't know if we've really seen it in Connecticut. That is impressive. I don't know. I guess they don't have butcher knives where he's at, but it's the whole, I thought it was a horrible interview. He didn't have insight into his anger. He didn't seem to understand. And that could have to do with the attorney he has, who's like feeding it into him. And was it just me? The guy's huge. He's like a giant. Either that or his attorney is tiny. Seeing them sit next to each other was just such a contrast. And I mean, here's the Sir Richard, you know, Sir Richard did a research on this months ago. That's why we have. So before Holly joined, it's nice to call on Sir Richard again. It really is. It's like going in a time machine. And the spreadsheet, I mean, I have so much research from Sir Richard. Will always, for years to come, be going back to him. So charges have been upgraded to homicide against 3 men accused of robbery and stabbing death of 1 man. Oh, by the way, talking about Sir Richard, one of the men had gotten out. One of his co-defendants, let's see, he had gone out in 2015, and then he was arrested. No, 2014, and he was arrested in 2015 for interfering with an officer and reckless endangerment. But as of now, he's back out. He only got like a year for that. So, you know. The men employees of the Milford KFC outlet engineered Wednesday night's robbery of the restaurant and abducted a night manager. Armando Rivera, Raul Cardano, which was a felony, murder, and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with the death of, you know, can you imagine? You're a manager, 58 years old, work, and your employees start to do that to you. He was reported missing Tuesday. His body was found Friday afternoon in the trunk of his car. Rivera Cardona and Pedroza initially held robbery, larceny, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just think something must be wrong. Look, and I get they're saying, well, he needs a supervision, and that's why they're going to let him out. They don't want him to have a flat sentence. And okay, all right. But man, what a bad hearing. Oh, and then I almost forgot the state's attorney no-show. So I don't know if I left this part in, if you heard it. At the beginning, the state's attorney did say, guys, I have to talk to a victim at 2:00. So if I leave, it's not that I don't want to be here. And there's a few things. One is I don't know if it was 2:00 yet. I don't, it's hard to keep track of the time right when this started. Actually, I wonder. It wouldn't have been. So Sir Richard has the timestamps. He's that crazy on the spreadsheet. So this hearing started at 1:30. So it would have been 2:00, half an hour in. So no. So she was gone. She said that she was going to be gone. And it seemed the parole board forgot about that. They should have, this is a really tragic part of the case. There's no one talking on behalf of the victim. No one. Can you imagine? You don't have a single person that will show up on your behalf, and then the state's attorney that's meant to be there can't be there because the scheduling is wrong. I mean, she would have known she had to be there. And this is, if you're wondering why is the state's attorney there? The state's attorneys all show up to these hearings. It's like mandatory. The 23-169 hearings, which they're there because if they committed a crime under the age of 21. It's like the Act 122 hearing out of Louisiana. But so in Connecticut, that's like the only thing the state's attorneys show up to. And they're consistent. And from what we've heard of them, they're talented, they're good, they're passionate, they make great arguments. I really enjoy hearing them. But she didn't make it. And that's sad because it just didn't seem fair to have no one represent a man who was just, you heard him in his last words just saying, why are you doing this? The horror, the fear, the terror. And there you have it. If he comes back, we'll get him in the revocation hearings. Hopefully he doesn't. I'm hoping everything works out. And with that, I'll let you go.
So your attorney describes it as impulsive and reckless immaturity. You know, there was a degree of rage on your part, on Mr. Rivera's part, such that this victim was stabbed 28 times before he died on the floor of that restaurant kitchen.
Yes.
So, you know, it wasn't so much impulsive and reckless as it was fueled by rage.